Hi, this is Ela, and I'm going to talk today about composition. So here I have a study, and this is what most beginners do, where they just paint an object. They really focus intensely on that object, and they don't think about what is going to be in the background. Right, here's some other studies that I've done in the past, and they're all just kind of floating there in space. Maybe if they've mixed some colors and maybe there's more than one object, but they're not really thinking about how these two objects relate to each other. So if you want to learn how to paint compositions and really have it feel like a painting and not just a study, the trick is to create shapes to fill the space in interesting ways. So here you can see how I've laid these two vegetables on top of each other, and I have a background, and I have, some more space behind this color here, whatever it is, a table or a piece of fabric. And suddenly it's more interesting. These guys are relating to each other. They have a relationship to the space, and you have a sense that there's a bigger world beyond these two vegetables. So I'm going to show you some really common compositions that you see over and over again when you look at art that you can try on your own. And I'm also going to show you some paintings by famous people and by myself that reflect these different styles of compositions. And sometimes if you really look at these and think about these a lot, you'll find them popping up automatically and consciously in your work. So the first one I'm going to show you is the rule of thirds. So you can see I have 1, 2, 3 areas marked out here, and it's approximately in thirds. I didn't use a ruler, it's not perfect, but it can be vertical or horizontal. Here's the rule of thirds in a still life. We've got 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. We've got some interesting shapes. They're not just straight horizontal lines, but it still applies. Here's a rule of thirds by Mark Adams. Here we go, famous watercolorist. Here's a third. Here's another third, right? We've got a diagonal here, but it's still kind of resting around in that third area. And then we've got another third at the top. So it's a general concept. It's not an exact science. Here's Richard Diebenkorn. 1/3 up here. Here's a second third right here. Doesn't go all the way, so you don't have to follow it perfectly. It still works. And then we have the bottom third right here. And then we've also got a third over here and a third over here. Here's a completely abstract painting that I did that uses the rule of thirds. I painted water here, 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 and here with a very large brush. And then I sprinkled paint, I think using a paintbrush or a toothbrush. So I splattered, and everywhere where it hit the water, it spread and bled out, doing wet into wet technique. And where the paper is dry, it stayed put and small and compact. But you can still see how it's been divided up into 9 squares down here. So I'm applying the rule of thirds here. This painting, by the way, was inspired by a painting that I saw by Sam Francis at the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco a long time ago. Another compositional form that you see that popped up over and over again are circles. And it could be a single circle. It could go off the edges like here, or it could be contained within the picture plane. And then over here you can see I have a number of objects that are arranged in a circle. So even though there are no lines creating the circle, your eye is guided around by the objects. Here's a watercolor that is not a perfect circle, but it guides your eye around the picture from object to object. So your eye moves around. I've chosen to having some things going off the edge of the page. I find that makes pictures more interesting, and it creates what's called negative space, which is the space around the objects. So this brown piece is a negative space, this blue up here is a negative space, and the shapes around these apples are all negative space. Good thing to try. Here's a circular composition by Georgia O'Keeffe. We have the big circle here. Goes all the way around, like up off the page, and then connects back up again here. And then you have this smaller circle here. And we kind of have another sort of a circle-y shape down here. So we've got circles within circles. It's very dynamic and exciting, and you kind of want to go out through that blue space in the hole. So that's kind of fun. Here's another circle. This big black shape, which goes off the page on the edges, creates these interesting negative spaces in the corner, which reflect this kind of star shape in the middle, which is also a lighter value, kind of like these guys. And then it kind of curves down here along the bottom, and kind of cradled by these blue shapes. So the last shape I'm going to talk about are triangles. Sometimes shapes can be kind of hidden. You have to really look for them to see them. You can see these lines going down like this, and then we have this sort of T shape with the horns at the top. So we've got a great big triangle right here with this skull. Laid these on top of each other, it's sort of an X, but it's also creating sort of a triangle shape, and there's a big triangle right here at the bottom. And then I decided to have the fabric go off the top of the page at that point up the top, and it feels very solid and stable. It was feeling kind of empty down here before I put the shadow in, but when I put in that shadow, it actually created another shape, which helps hold up the base. I hope you found this helpful. You don't have to plan shapes into your pictures if you don't want to, but it will make your work more interesting. It is a good way to challenge yourself. And when you go and look at art by other people, try to see if there's shape hiding in the composition, and it might be really obvious. It might be more subtle, but see what you can do. All right, I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you try it out on your own. Bye-bye.